Every December, Trevor and Jess put up lovely Christmas decorations and their daughter Maddie puts the star on top of the tree. However, as Maddie grows older, she loses interest in this tradition. A year after the couple gets a divorce, Trevor lives alone in Hertfordshire. His home is humble and electricity needs a coin to get it to work, but he keeps up his Christmas traditions. He eats some candy from an advent calendar and decorates the tree with a wrapper. When Jess calls, Trevor has to go outside in the cold to get good reception. He says he can't wait for his family to come over for the holidays to show them around, but Jess interrupts him with big news. Her new boyfriend has a villa in Barbados, so she and Maddie will spend the holidays there. Jess' boyfriend is also offered to pay for Maddie's college, but Trevor tells her that won't be necessary because he can afford it. He doesn't tell Jess that he actually has a lot of debt. Trevor is so sad that he turns off the lights on his tree. At the local school, Trevor helps with the organization of the Christmas celebrations. The principal calls him to her office so they can have a last toast, reminding him that this is his last day on the job. When she asks if he has another job lined up, he says no. Later someone rings the bell and Trevor rushes to open the door, only to find a baby in a basket. He shows the baby to a teacher, who explains that one of the mothers would let them use their child for the nativity scene. Trevor puts the baby in the manger and the event can finally begin. During the play, Trevor is in charge of the music and the sound effects. He also keeps checking his phone and learns that Maddie's college will be extremely expensive. At that moment he gets a call from a house-sitting company he used to work for and receives a job offer. While pulling at a rope to lift the star on the stage, Trevor tries to explain that he doesn't house-sit anymore. When the employee tells him what the pay would be, Trevor is so shocked by the big number that he lets go of the rope. The star falls on the stage, scaring the children. Trevor is now interested in the job, but he has to be in London by 5 for an interview. After the event is over, Trevor turns off all the lights and leaves the school, but he comes back when he hears someone crying. The baby is still in the stage, so Trevor picks him up and goes to the principal's office to look for the parents' phone in the directory. He tries calling them but nobody picks up. Moments later Trevor is desperate to take the train to London but the parents still haven't called back, so he decides to go directly to their house. To his shock, the mother has her baby, and she explains she couldn't take her to the play because she's sick. This means the baby in the basket was abandoned at the school. Trevor calls the principal for help, but she's already leaving town so she tells him to solve the issue himself. Then he calls the police, who can only send someone in 3 to 4 hours. Since Trevor needs to leave, they advise him to try social services. He immediately calls social services and finally gets someone who agrees to pick up the baby. While waiting, Trevor packs his bag. When he turns around, the baby is gone. He runs to look for him and catches him right before the kid goes down the stairs. Moments later the social services agent finally arrives, but when Trevor is about to hand him the baby, he finds the basket empty again. Trevor starts looking for the child around the house and calls him Baby Jesus, so the social services agent thinks he may be crazy. He leaves his card on the table and tells Trevor to call him if he really finds a baby, then he leaves. Eventually Trevor finds the baby under the tree table and runs to hand him to the agent, but the guy is already driving away. Trevor tries to call him, however the agent won't answer his phone. He decides to drop the baby off at the social services office, only to discover that it's already closed. Next he calls the police station, but his reception is poor and his phone battery dies. With no other choice, Trevor has to take the baby with him to London. A train ride later, they arrive at a very luxurious building, and Trevor makes sure the baby doesn't appear on the camera when he rings the bell. While waiting in the lobby, he hides the baby inside his backpack until Petra comes to pick him up. Now Trevor has to awkwardly walk into the elevator so she won't see the child's face. After introductions, Petra shows Trevor a fob that must be used to access the apartment and penthouse. During the elevator ride the baby makes some cooing noises, and Trevor has to pretend they came from him. They make it to the penthouse that Trevor will house sit and he's impressed by its beauty. The baby keeps making noises, so Trevor shakes his body to rock him. This only causes the baby to fart, so Trevor pretends it was him again and Petra tells him to put the bag down, so he walks backward and leaves the bag near the entrance. Afterward Petra gives Trevor a tour of the place, which has way too many rooms. The baby uses the chance to push the bag down and escape. When the adults return to the starting point, Trevor sees the baby's bottle rolling on the floor. Petra goes over the rules, reminding him that he isn't allowed to bring guests of any kind while the baby crawls behind her. Thankfully he's gone by the time she turns around. Then Petra shows him the rest of the rooms and Trevor hides the baby's bottle inside a vase, pretending he's just admiring the art. When he finally finds the baby, he hides him inside the trash can before Petra can see him. He wonders when he'll know if he got the job and Petra says it started 15 minutes ago. She leaves him her card and the fob, telling him not to lose it because there are no copies. The whole staff is on vacation, so nobody should show up during the holidays. After Petra leaves, Trevor charges his phone and finds a strange remote control. When he presses the buttons, the statue on the balcony moves. At that moment the baby makes some noise and Trevor finally remembers to pull him out. However his phone starts ringing, so he puts him in the can again and gives him a kitchen timer as a toy. Trevor picks up the call from the police officer, who says he's finally ready to pick up the baby. However, since Trevor has moved to a new address, he now has to contact the London police. The officer promises to pass along the details to his colleagues. Then Trevor checks on the baby and discovers he needs to be changed. He searches the apartment and decides to use a fancy shawl as an improvised diaper. The baby gets a bath and the shawl is held up by office clips. Trevor puts the dirty diaper in a plastic bag and leaves it on the balcony. Afterward, he retrieves the bottle from the vase to feed the child, but the milk runs out fast. He brings the baby with him to the supermarket to get more milk and some baby food, but he needs to know the baby's weight to choose the right jar. Trevor ends up weighing him with the store's produce scale. On their way out, he realizes he can't carry everything, so he takes the shopping cart. After they leave the store, Trevor gets a phone call from Georgia, who works in London's social services. The police told her about the situation, so she'll pick up the baby tomorrow afternoon. After dinner, the baby poops again and Trevor has to use more shawls to change him. When it's time to sleep, Trevor puts the baby inside a basket. In the middle of the night, Trevor is awakened by the baby crying. He tries lots of things to make him sleep again, like songs and jumping on the bed, but nothing works. Eventually the baby burps and that finally calms him down. Then Trevor puts him back in the basket, only for the baby to cry again. Trevor searches for something he can use and finds a bottle of champagne, so he opens it and gives the cork to the baby to suck on, which quickly puts him to sleep. The next morning, Trevor is woken up when the baby spits the cork out and cries. It's now time to change the baby, but there's only one shawl left. Trevor orders diapers online and throws all the dirty shawls on the balcony. Then he tries to have a relaxing breakfast, only to be interrupted by the kitchen timer. He discovers the baby is trying to go upstairs and has to run to stop him. When the delivery guy arrives, Trevor leaves the baby on the floor and rushes to the bell system, but he doesn't know what button to use. The delivery guy leaves, so Trevor runs to the street and stops him just in time to get his order. When he returns to the elevator, he's horrified to realize he left the fob in the penthouse. While the baby starts climbing the stairs, Trevor remembers that the cleaner has a fob too, so he searches for the contact list on the reception desk. He wants to call her, but he left his phone in the apartment too. At that moment, a tenant named Lionel enters the building and Trevor borrows his phone to call the cleaner Elsa for help. Elsa can bring the fob over, but she needs to call Petra first and promises to contact him later. Since Trevor needs to wait for that call, he follows Lionel to his apartment and ends up sitting with the family for lunch. Soon Georgia arrives and nobody comes to the door, so she leaves a message on Trevor's phone saying that if he doesn't call back,